sideways.
No. Please continue to please send them. I was going to say, if you are a time traveler from the future, I would like to know if our podcast gets so huge that we eventually are offered like
if we
a
Bill
movie
and Ted it.
or something like that, or if we become the basis of a whole society or something like that, like Bill and Ted. We really kind of like to know. I mean, how big do we get? Are we going to get bigger than cereal? We really want to know.
We want to know. So email us all of that. That email address is thinkingsidewayspodcast@gmail.com. So with that, I think we're going to scoot on out of here.
Back to the future.
Just in time.
Be excellent to each other.
Thinking Sideways.
I don't get it.
Abroad the aliens.
You must not learn what you have been. I don't know.
Stories of things we simply don't know the answer to.
Hi there. Welcome to another episode of Thinking Sideways. I'm Joe, joined as always by
Devin
and
Steve.
And we're going to talk about another fascinating mystery this week.
Sweet.
Yeah, I know. This is a fun one here. This one has been dubbed by some people, the honeymoon killer.
AKA why Devin should never go to Australia for the honeymoon.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Well, don't go to Australia in general. Everything there is trying to kill you, but hey, that's besides the point.
It's a deadly place. Yeah, watch Mad Max if you don't believe me. So this is actually about the death of Tina Watson. There are some who, by the way, feel that the name honeymoon killer is not exactly appropriate, but we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
But Tina drowned accidentally while scuba diving in Australia in 2003.
Or did she?
I know, because there were people, including Tina's family and the Australian police, who think she was murdered. So we got a mystery here, don't you think?
I think that's usually why we sit down.
Yeah,
that's the only reason I come here.
Yeah.
Mysteries?
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about the death of Tina Watson.
All right.
But first off, I want to give a shout out to Maggie, who suggested this episode. So thank you, Maggie.
Oh, yeah, the listener suggestion.
Yeah, it's a fun little mystery. And also, I forgot my last episode, I talked about the murder on the Herbert Fuller.
Yeah.
Fun little story. And I forgot to mention Rachel, our listener, who suggested that one. So, a belated shout out to you, Rachel. Hi, and hope you're not mad about me forgetting previously. It happens sometimes.
Yep.
Anyway, back to our story. Also a warning, this episode involves water, which may frighten some people. So, you've been warned.
My mom is actually scared of oceans.
Oh, really?
Huh.
She's very uncomfortable about the ocean.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Does
that is actually a thing.
Does that include, like, walking on the beach? Or just
no,
being
it's
out on boats in the ocean?
being out on boats in the ocean.
Oh, okay.
When it's so deep and you don't know what's below you.
Yeah.
Oh, I get seasick, but that's really...
Yeah. Anyway, that's a thing.
Okay.
No,
I could sort of get that. Yeah. Anyway, back to our story of Tina and her husband Gabe. His name was David Gabriel Watson. I shouldn't say was. As far as I know, he's still alive.
Yeah.
David Gabriel Watson went by the name Gabe, and Christina Mae Thomas, she went by the name Tina. They were both 26, and they're from Helena, Alabama. If you're from Helena, if that's pronounced Helena, well, I'm sorry. I apologize. But I'll go by Helena. Tina and Gabe met in college, and they'd been together about 2 years before they got married. That was in October 2003, and then they went off for their honeymoon in Australia.
Didn't they have kind of an on-again, off-again relationship during that time?
I have heard that, but I'm not sure.
Okay, that's why I asked, because I had seen it somewhere. I don't know who's the source of that.
Well, with these two, you see a lot of stuff about their relationship out there.
Mm-hmm.
A lot. And I'm not sure what to believe, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, I think that's one of the hardest things about reading this is there's a lot of conjecture about the couple and the relationship and their trip and everything. Like, there's just so much weird coverage.
I know.
Yeah.
Some people say they were a happy couple. Other people say they were totally dysfunctional. And,
I feel people tend to do that. We've definitely covered a lot of cases like this where people really read into the relationship and kind of put their own spin on it, and realistically nobody can ever know what that relationship was like except for the two people who were in it.
Yeah,
that's very true.
Yeah, no, I was going to talk a little bit about that. Well, Tina, according to what you hear from some people, including her family and friends. At the age of 26, all of her friends had gotten married, and she was apparently worried that she was going to wind up being an old maid.
Ah.
Yeah, at
With
26.
cats?
With cats.
We don't know anybody like that.
No, I don't know, but I don't think it's weird to have cats at all. But some people apparently do. But, and it looks like, from what people have been saying, but at least maybe good enough, I guess. So Tina was desperate. This is, not necessarily true. This is just what some people have been saying.
Yeah, that's right up there with they got married to fix the relationship. Kind of like sometimes we see in stories, they had children to save the relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's what you see that out there.
Yeah, but and then on the other side, Gabe was supposed to be a very controlling, domineering kind of person. He reportedly said to Tina that, well, if you want to be with me, you're going to have to learn to do the things I like to do, which is fishing and scuba diving. And of course, we've all seen how well the scuba diving turned out for Tina. And of course, there was a famous engagement ring episode, which I'm sure you guys have heard about, right?
Well, I mean, probably our listeners haven't.
They probably haven't. Let me tell them about that. And again, this is from, I think, Tina's sister mostly.
So can I give a little caveat here, which is his family, Gabe's family, apparently liked Tina.
Yeah.
Tina's family despised Gabe prior to everything going down. So that has a tendency to color it.
Yeah, at the very least, they didn't
like him.
They weren't.
Okay, despise might be a strong word, but they didn't like him.
I'm sure by this point in time they actually do despise him because there's been some bad water under the bridge or something. But the engagement ring episode was supposedly after they'd been together like maybe 6 months or God knows, I can't remember. He bought an engagement ring for her. And brings it home in a little bag, from the jeweler's. It's got the jeweler's name inside of it. Sets it on top of his big screen. And then she sees it, sitting in the bag. Says, "What's in the bag?" And he says, "Oh, it's an engagement ring, but you can't look at it." And she's like, "What?" And he says, "No, you can't look at it. If you look at it, I'm going to return the ring." And so she didn't look at it. And supposedly this was like tormenting her for months, according to some people. And it's sort of a telling story about.
It's a game to him
about Gabe, being a sort of manipulative, domineering person.
I mean, I don't want to. Again, sometimes we put ourselves in the position where we find ourselves defending people who are kind of jerks. But to me, either that is like super domineering, or it's his idea of romance.
Yeah, exactly.
Like he's trying to like build suspense.
He's drawing it out.
Yeah, he's like, well, okay, I'm gonna engage. We're gonna get engaged.
She's so crazy for it, she can't help but say yes.
I mean, I think of situations where guys are like, oh yeah, I bought the ring 6 months in, like, because I knew, and then 3 years later I finally proposed. And I don't know, maybe in his head it was super romantic to be like, here's this thing that we're gonna do, but also it is super jerk. I'd be mad.
Well, yeah, but
someone did that to me.
Yeah, but again, you don't know exactly how he said it. He might have just said it kiddingly and all that stuff. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. Is he could have totally been like joking, like, haha, don't open that, expecting her to open it, and she was like, oh my god, I better not open it. So she interpreted it one way, and he was hoping she would open it because then he'd be like, so very. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think this case is much like I think it was actually your last one, Joe, the Herbert Fuller, where the context and the way that the statements were made can dramatically change what their meaning is, and that's I think we're gonna have to talk about that several times through this one easily.
And there's been a lot said about this one too. Like one of the things that's been said about Gabe is that he changed his story like 16 times. Yeah, not necessarily so, but anyway, his the picture that's been painted of Gabe in the press, frankly, has not been good. Not at all. And I have no idea how much, if any, of that stuff is really true. Probably a lot of it's BS. I know a lot of it came from Tina's family, as you said. Things were never great between Gabe and Tina's family. And then, of course, after Tina died, well, things really went south.
Yeah.
In a big way.
As you would expect.
Yeah, it's understandable, of course, And Gabe did sort of get her killed by encouraging her to get into scuba.
At the very least, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
and of course, they think it went beyond that. They think he murdered her.
Right.
But we'll talk about that in a few minutes.
Yeah.
So they've kind of put every aspect of Gabe and his relationship with Tina in the worst possible light, I think. But anyway, back to our honeymoon. We've taken a little detour there, but
that's all good information, though. Pertinent.
No, they got married. They went out for their honeymoon in Australia, and of course, somebody didn't make it back, and the other one became known in the press as the honeymoon killer. So that's our mystery this week. They had about 2 weeks in Australia, and the plan is that the first week would be Tina's week, and they would just do stuff that Tina wanted to do.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be super judgy and say, like, if you can't compromise as a couple on things you might want to do together,
Yeah.
well,
I don't think that it was all this, screw you, we're doing this, it's my week. I don't think it was quite like that necessarily. It's more like just, what do you...
it was her turn to plan.
Yeah, what do you really want to do in Australia? What's your top
But
priority?
that to me is very weird, because I know when I went on mine, it was we have these things in this area while we're there. Which ones do we want to do?
We.
And, yes.
No, I know
we being the operative term.
No, I know what happened on yours. Now, on yours, the first week was your wife's week, and then the second week was your wife's week.
I was gonna say the first week was alcohol, and the second week was more alcohol.
Well, no, that's
Oh,
true.
God,
That's
what have I
actually
done?
totally true too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, she didn't say that.
Yeah. No. Okay. But they had a week during Tina's week, and I assume Tina wanted to experience Australian culture, which you know what Australians do.
They drink Fosters.
No, and they also put on leather outfits.
Put
and
stuff out on the bobby.
Yeah, they do that, but they also, they wear leather and they drive muscle cars at high speeds in the outback.
They wrestle alligators.
Yeah. And
These are all very true statements.
And
Yeah.
they chain people on guitars to the front of cars.
Exactly.
Yep,
And then
yep.
they had these high-speed chases and shoot at each other and stuff.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Australia actually sounds like a pretty badass
fun place,
I know.
yeah.
That's why I want to go.
Yeah.
So to all of our Australian listeners, before you shut this off and unsubscribe, sorry, we're having
Sorry.
fun.
Sorry.
Yeah, we totally are. Well, then week number 2 came around. It was Gabe's turn, and Gabe had booked a trip with Mike Ball's Dive Expeditions. And of course, this was a bad idea. Nobody knew that at the time yet, but it turned out to be a bad idea because based on my anecdotal analysis, statistical probability of somebody dying on your scuba honeymoon in Australia is about 100%.
That's not right.
That's not right?
Nope, because I have friends who did it,
They did it?
and they're both still
They
alive.
both came back?
Really?
Did
Yep.
anybody on their expedition not come back?
Nope.
All I know is I remember reading in the paper, this was years ago, this couple was honeymooning up the Great Barrier Reef and they were scuba diving and then hubby got eaten by a great white shark, which I'm sure cast a pall over things just
Yeah.
a bit. And then, of course, there's this one where Tina died, so there you go.
It's 99%.
That's pretty high.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, of course, there might be other stuff going on out there where people scuba dive and nothing happens, but I don't know about those, so I don't care. Yeah.
That's not included in your data.
No,
No.
exactly.
I only used incidents where people were killed and maimed.
that I have heard of. So yeah, my data set consists of 2. But our story is, they're on a dive trip with Mike Ball Dive Expeditions, and it's going to be a dive on the SS Yongala, which was a ship that,
It was a shipwreck.
it sank in a cyclone in 1911. There's
Oh, an
pictures of it out
Expedition
there.
2. Got it.
Yeah, it wasn't sailing on.
I know. I
Yeah.
was like, wait, I thought this was a scuba diving thing, not a shipwreck thing, but okay.
Yeah, you can dive in the ship
Into
and
it.
see
Got
all
it.
the fish.
Okay,
and-
okay.
Yeah, you can dive on the wreck.
Gotcha.
But the wreck is not sailing anymore, though. It's sort of sitting in one spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Yongala was rediscovered in 1958, and it's considered today to be one of the world's best wreck dives.
Okay.
And I guess, wreck dives are a big thing with scuba divers.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Very popular.
Oh, yeah, totally, because normally you go down there, what's there to look at? A bunch of fish. So it's kind of cool and dramatic to be able to look at a wrecked ship on
And
the bottom
swim
of the sea.
through it.
Yeah. I don't think they encourage people to swim through this one.
Well, I mean, swim through like the top deck and the,
Oh, yeah.
you can go around the cabins. That's what I mean by that.
Oh, yeah.
You're not really supposed to go inside when you're
No, not a good idea. No, not really.
unless you're very highly rated, which
Yeah.
most of these people aren't.
Yeah, there's things to cut yourself on, and God knows what's living inside there. I mean,
That's exactly
that's
it.
something to be thinking about too. So,
I
yeah.
saw Finding Nemo. I know what lives in those things.
Oh yeah, there's all kinds of scary stuff hiding in there. But from the outside at least, it looks pretty cool. Well, let me give you a quick rundown of how the wreck looks. It's about 50 miles off the east coast of Australia, and it's southeast of a town called Townsville.
And how far is that in miles? to
kilometers, so
Yeah.
that'd be 80 kilometers.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's about 28 meters down, or about 100 feet.
Okay.
So the seafloor, it's laying on its starboard side.
So it's not super deep, but
No,
deep
no,
enough.
not really, no. And especially, you don't have to go all the way down. You can cruise like 50 feet down and see the wreck nice, and just look at it from up.
Right, my
50
point
feet up.
was it's not like it requires some crazy dive setup. Like, remember we talked
No.
about Ben McDaniels
Yeah.
and the gas mixes that he needs? It's nothing like that.
No, not at all. And It is considered a sort of difficult dive because of currents and such things. But the wreck is oriented north to south, so the bow is pointing north, maybe a little bit off north, but more or less north to south. And they've set it up for what essentially was permanent access, permanent anchor point, because so many boats are coming and going and bringing dive groups there. You can't have people setting anchors all the time. So they've
just tear things up.
Oh yeah, so they've dropped these massive concrete blocks with chains or ropes attached to them to go to buoys. So you cruise up in your boat full of divers and you just grab one of those buoys and tie your anchor line to that instead of dropping an anchor. And there's two special blocks that are called diver access points, or DAPs, and there's one at the bow, one at the stern, also a chain or a rope. I've heard it said, I'm not sure which it is. I've seen a picture of it, it looks like a rope, but other people have said it's a chain. It doesn't matter. It's a line that goes down to about 10 meters in front of the ship from a buoy at top. And then, so that's where you get in, and then you cruise down to the current is flowing from north to south along the wreck. And so what most divers do is they get in at what's called DAP 2, Diver Access Point 2, at the bow, go down as deep as they feel like going, and then just let go and let the current take them across just down the length of the wreck.
So you can just basically drift over the top of it, and check it out, and then get to the exit. And
get to the exit line, DAP 1, and just climb back out again. Of course, you can do whatever you want. You can stop off and explore and prowl around on the side of the wreck, or you can just, like I say, drift right over the top of it.
Just like a lazy river.
Yeah, pretty much like a little river cruise,
That's it, yep.
Yeah, and so it looks like
the water park.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and so on the morning, I believe it was October 22nd, 2003, they had gotten on their boat, which was called the Spoilsport.
That was the dive boat they were on.
The dive boat that they were on. They'd gotten on that the night before, and then they spent the night on the boat, and then the next morning, I think that night they cruised out, just sort of spent the night cruising out there, and they woke up in the morning and they were pretty much there. The Spoilsport tied off at what's called point 905, which is an anchor point directly to the east of the wreck.
Okay.
And then a little later in the morning, another boat showed up, the Jazz 2, which is another dive company, and they tied up at point 904, which is a point north of where the Spoilsport was and kind of northeast of the wreck. So the Jazz 2 was actually pretty close to the bow of the ship. And then later on, yet another boat showed up on the other side at point 903, and they tied up. That's the Adrenaline, tied up there. So there were 3 boats in the water there, and a lot of divers. And so what happened is...
So they're making kind of a loose triangle on top of the wreck at this point.
Yeah, kind of around the outside of the wreck.
Okay.
Yeah. And like I said, a very popular place, just all teeming with divers all the time. Yeah. Well, on the day of, they went to get in the water. So the Spoilsport was, of course, south of the access point. So what would happen is that people would suit up and they would get into like a rubber
dinghy or something.
Dinghy kind of thing. Well, a little bigger than a dinghy, but essentially a boat.
Yeah.
And they would be ferried up to the put-in point, diver access point 2. And then they would all go down and do their thing, and then they could, when they got to the exit point, they could either be picked up by a boat, or I think they had a rope. When they tied a rope across from the Spoilsport to the exit line. And they also put a cylinder of air down there too, at 5 meters down, for people who were running low on air but needed to do a little decompressing. So they had an extra cylinder of air hanging down there for safety.
I think that's standard, right?
Yeah.
I feel like I remember from the Ben McDaniels thing. It was
decompression.
Yeah.
No, that like you would have extra tanks.
Yeah, especially on a set up organization like this, absolutely. Because while 100 feet isn't going to give you the worst decompressions, the bends, there is a chance of some of it, so it is good practice.
And you would want to.
The guy needs to sit there for 5 minutes and he's only got 3 minutes of air.
Exactly.
You want to encourage him to do the right thing by having the air available instead of just saying, screw it, I've only got 3 minutes, I'm just going to get out.
Yeah.
And then barfing all over your boat.
Sometimes it's worse than barfing. The bends are bad. My understanding of how that works, and I'm sure I'll get an email about this, but a lot of it has to do with depth and also how long you've been down.
Yes. So it's how long you've been down, and then how long you spent how long it takes you to come up to allow is it the nitrogen in your blood? Is that what it is? I think.
I think it is. There's a little bubble. You get little bubbles in your blood and stuff. And so there was some controversy about this, even in that one. Some people feel like Gabe took too long to come off the surface, but we'll talk about that soon now. So they were heading out about maybe 10 to get into the water, and they were one of a group of 6 divers, and they headed out to the access point. Pam climbed on in with the other divers, and
how long had Tina and Gabe been scuba diving?
I probably should have